So after 1975, the post-war communist government that won the war set out to dismantle the South Vietnamese government, the political system that had existed under the South Vietnamese government, and the South Vietnamese media. The post-war government banned all political parties and organizations that had been associated with South Vietnam or that had existed under the South Vietnamese government. This included even groups that had been sympathetic to the NLF during the war. This ban effectively turned South Vietnam into a single-party state, similar to North Vietnam. The communists also shut down South Vietnamese newspapers and radio stations and banned books and music that were deemed insufficiently communist or that undermined the communist effort. And it's not only institutions or organizations that were targeted, it was also people. The communists imprisoned hundreds of thousands of South Vietnamese whose loyalty they were suspicious of. This included entire categories of people. So military officers who had fought for South Vietnam were imprisoned. So were government officials, especially officials in certain sensitive areas like intelligence or the police. There were artists, intellectuals, musicians who had been critical of communism. They were also imprisoned. There was very little due process, and sentences for these individuals ranged from a few weeks or a few months to over a decade. And I want to stress that we don't actually know the exact total number of people who were affected. Estimates range from hundreds of thousands to over 1 million. The communist government took it a step further to not just punish individuals directly involved, but their families. So the communists implemented a series of discriminatory policies that were based on political background. People from families who had supported the NLF or North Vietnam were given priority for employment in terms of government service, so they had an easier time getting a job with the government. Children from these families were also given priority for admissions into secondary school and university. In contrast, people from families who had supported South Vietnam or the South Vietnamese government, they had a much harder time getting a job with the government, post-war government, if they could at all, and their children had a harder time getting into selective schools. So altogether, these policies were not just about establishing a new political system, they were also about punishing the people who had been associated with the old political system.